care. I now yield 1 minute and 15 seconds to the gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Magaziner.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. I rise in opposition to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and House Republicans stealing trillions of dollars from the middle class to fund massive tax cuts for billionaires. Instead of focusing on the cost of living or making America safer, Republicans are planning a massive giveaway to the rich, with working people picking up the tab. They want $2 trillion in tax cuts for people making more than $500,000 a year by extending Trump's 2017 tax plan. $2 trillion for people making more than $500,000 a year. And how are they going to pay for it? By cutting Medicaid. That's health care for 77 million Americans, 80,000 Rhode Islanders, including seniors, children, and people with disabilities. Nursing homes and community health centers all across this country will shut down. And it's not just health care. This bill takes money from education, farmers, and small businesses, all for billionaire tax cuts. These Republicans are not fighting for you. They are fighting for Donald and Elon's rich friends at Mar-a-Lago, and you're paying for it. I urge my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back.
The gentlelady from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Costa.
I want to thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I strongly oppose this rule that enables a reckless Republican budget resolution to go forward. And let me tell you why. Republicans claim to be lowering costs, but their plan, in my view, does just the opposite. And let me bring it all home. The California's 21st Congressional District that I have the honor and privilege to represent, wonderful people in the San Joaquin Valley. 456,532 people could lose their Medicaid under this rule and budget resolution. 131,000 people could lose their SNAP benefits under this rule and this resolution. Over 25,000 people could lose coverage through the Affordable Health Care Act. We have made remarkable progress as a result of the Affordable Health Care Act, reducing the amount of people without insurance in our constituency to less than 10%. That would be changed. And now 3 million people and $3 million in energy and conservation funds that would be withheld from farmers in my district. If you want to put the American people first, we must reject this debacle and begin on a real bipartisan basis to pass a budget that fits for the American people.
Time has expired. The gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Morrison.
Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, today I rise on behalf of the nearly 80 million Americans across the country who get their health insurance through Medicaid. I rise as a physician who has cared for patients for more than 20 years, and I implore my colleagues to recognize that health insurance is not just a throwaway line item that you can scratch out in a budget. It is the difference between being able to receive the life-saving health care you need or not. Medicaid is the single largest source of health care coverage in the United States. Medicaid covers nearly half of all children, and it is the largest insurer of kids with disabilities. Medicaid is a vital source of prenatal and postpartum care for women, and it covers more than 40% of births in our country. The Republicans' dangerous proposal today is selling out the health and wellness of kids, families, seniors in nursing homes, and people with disabilities. And why? To make room for tax breaks for millionaires? This is wrong. We cannot stand for this. To my colleagues across the aisle, we need you to stand up for our children and families. Thank you.
The gentleman from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I notice there's not a lot of people on the other side wanting to defend this budget. I now yield 1 minute to the gentleman from California, Mr. Gomez.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, the Republican budget can be summed up in 3 simple words: defund, defraud, and deceive. First, the Republicans want to defund social safety net programs working families rely on, like Medicaid and school meals and food stamps. In my district alone, 425,000 individuals depend depend on Medicaid for their health care. That includes kids and people with disabilities. Second, Republicans want to defraud the American people by taking money from working families to hand out massive tax breaks to billionaires and corporations who pay little to no taxes. And finally, they are trying to deceive the American people by claiming that they're not cutting any programs. But we know at the end of the day that their budget will include cuts to Medicaid and programs that families depend on. Republicans need to step up because this is not just a blue state or a Democratic issue. This will cut benefits, healthcare benefits, for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans across the country, including 171,000 in Arizona's 6th district.
The gentleman's time has expired.
So we need Republicans to step up.
The gentleman's time
and not
has expired.
Be shameful and pass this budget. With that,
The gentleman's
I yield
time has
back.
expired.
I reserve.
Gentlewoman from Indiana is recognized. The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
I don't know if the gentleman wants to give us some of her time because we get a lot of speakers over here. I guess not. Okay. No, Hawaii. Okay. Hawaii. I yield 1 minute to the gentlewoman from Hawaii, Ms. Takuda.
Thank you. I rise today in strong opposition to the House Republican budget resolution, a blatant attempt to strip health care and food aid away from everyday Americans. With up to $2.5 trillion in Medicaid cuts and $230 billion slashed from SNAP, this budget plan would leave millions of families and seniors without essential support, and rural America would suffer the most. Nationwide, more than 12 million rural Americans rely on Medicaid, and SNAP participation is higher in rural areas than urban ones. In my home state of Hawaii, over 350,000 people rely on Medicaid, and nearly 1 in 5 depend on SNAP to eat. Rural Americans who live in 181 of our congressional districts, red and blue, already face some of the harshest health disparities, living 3 to 10 years less than their urban counterparts. These cuts will only deepen such inequities and leave them with no safety net. Let me be clear, these cuts will cost lives. These are not just numbers, they are real people. They are our neighbors, our grandparents, and our children. At a time when too many are struggling, Republicans are delivering tax breaks to billionaires on the backs of our working families. Americans in rural America deserve better. Our country deserves better. I urge my colleagues to vote no. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlewoman from Indiana is recognized.
I reserve.
The gentleman from Massachusetts is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, let me just say, by the way, Mr. Speaker, how's that mandate going for you guys now that voters are realizing that you betrayed them? Let's look at some of your newspapers from around the country. Georgia congressman confronted by angry crowd over support for Trump's agenda. This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Quote, U.S. Rep. Rich McCormick was peppered with boos and catcalls throughout a town hall meeting in Roswell late Thursday as hundreds of critics jeered the Republican for backing President Donald Trump's agenda during his first month in office. There's another one. Quote, U.S. Rep. Glenn Grothman faces hostile crowd in Oshkosh town hall meeting. That's in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Quote, protesters urge Rep. Scott Perry to say no to Medicaid cuts. That's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Quote, outside Congressman's office, protesters make noise over potential Medicaid cuts. That's from Representative Ryan McKenzie's district in Salisbury Township in Pennsylvania. I could spend an hour reading into the record, Mr. Speaker. Republicans are getting chewed out at all of their town halls. Something is happening in this country right now, and you can feel it because people are waking up to the betrayal, and they are angry, and they have a right to be angry. So for my Republican colleagues, just remember that when you vote for this budget, you are on record. You have made it clear that you serve the billionaires and not your voters. And at this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Sorensen.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Looking around this room, I ask my colleagues, shouldn't our government benefit those we represent back home? But what's being presented by my Republican colleagues today? A plan that would gut 152,483 of my neighbors at home who depend on Medicaid for health care. More than 66,000 kids under the age of 19. 10,000 seniors back home rely on Medicaid in Illinois 17 for their nursing home coverage. While you may see this as a numbers game on a budget, I see families. I see neighbors. I see loved ones. And let me let you in on a secret, because there aren't any Republicans in this room. There are more Republican constituents of mine that are calling my office saying, we may have voted for Donald Trump, but we didn't vote for him to do this. This is cruel and unusual punishment to single out everyday Americans, making them go without. Also, billionaire donors and big corporations get the tax breaks to make them more wealthy. Let's get back to doing the work for the American people who need us to do this work the most. I yield back.